Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Allplane podcast. Today's episode starts with me asking you to use your imagination a little bit. In particular, just envision for a second that you are inside an airplane that looks like a 1920s Art Deco Manhattan apartment, complete with the decor and style of the Roaring Twenties. Or what about replacing passenger seats with a Japanese tatami? Or having a super-sized panoramic window on one side of the cabin? These are some of the outlandish ideas that have been put forward by our guest today, because Jay Beever is the VP of Interior Design at Embraer Executive Jets. His job is basically to define the concepts and the lines that will be built into the next generation of executive jets. Just as a top fashion designer would set the trends for next season, Jay helped set the trends in aircraft design. Prior to moving into aviation and to Florida's Space Coast, where Embraer Executive Jets is located, Jay had a successful career as a car designer in California, where he worked alongside some of the most visionary minds in the automotive industry. I am sure this background will come in very handy at a time when the aviation industry is on the cusp of major changes, with the advent of numerous personal air mobility concepts that are essentially like flying cars. We are going to talk with Jay about this as well as about many other aspects of aircraft design. So, without further ado, let me welcome Jay to the podcast. So, hello, Jay. How are you?
Good. How are you? Thank you for taking the time today to have a conversation about aerospace design and some of the cool stuff that is happening. So we're excited.
Yes. I remember very well when we met at an event. It was a flight, demonstration flight between Le Bourget near Paris and Geneva, just ahead of EVACE. And we flew an Embraer Lineage 1000E with a small group of people. And you showed us some very interesting designs, some amazing designs, I must say, that we're going to speak about this later, for cabin jet interiors. But first of all, let me ask you to introduce yourself briefly so that our audience can learn a bit more about you and the work you do at the Embraer Design Ops.
Okay. My name, je m'appelle J. Beever, or J. Beever in English.
Okay.
I'm the vice president of design operations for Embraer Executive Jets. So my responsibilities are twofold. We have an industrial design team that works on future concepts for the engineered piece of the canvases that we later touch and feel in the airplane, usually multiple years of development. And then the other half is the customer center design team, where our concierge designers will sit with customers and help them configure and trim and design and tailor their airplane interior. Two under one roof, which allows us a lot of opportunity for immediate feedback and modifications if necessary, even into the future pipeline. So that's kind of how we're constructed at Embraer.
And before that, you work at the automotive industry, right? For Ford, for the Ford Motor Company.
Yes, yep. I spent 15 years at Ford. I started off in the Dearborn, Michigan location as a CAD draftsman, design engineer, and eventually ended up in the design studios there working on Lincoln automobiles and Ford rear-wheel drive vehicles, which would include the Mustang and the Thunderbird and vehicles like that. At which point in 2002, transferred out to California, worked in their advanced design studios, where I had the chance to work with legendary car designers like Henrik Fisker and Freeman Thomas, Jerry McGovern, Merrick Reichman, who's currently head of Aston Martin design. And all those individuals, David Woodhouse, head of Nissan design. These were all colleagues of mine that I worked for in California, working on the various premier automotive group vehicles from Lincoln, Jaguar, Aston Martin, Land Rover, and Volvo. And Peter Horbury is another individual who heads the Volvo division still for the company in China that bought Volvo. I had an incredible experience there in California, working for a lot of individuals who are now running the design world and automotive and all the different. Leaving automotive was sad at the time because I really loved it, but getting into aerospace in 2007 was a clear opportunity because there's so much that this industry could use from the automotive in that sense of craftsmanship, execution, build, tooling, the manufacturing processes that would be applicable, things like that. So it's been quite a journey.
Yeah, actually, I mentioned your previous experience with car design because I think we are right now at a time when let's say the car industry and the aerospace industry are converging in some ways. I had a chance to write an article for CNN recently that it was about the advent of the flying car. It was all about all these new concepts for personal mobility, personal air mobility that are drawing heavily from the wall of automotive. And this is something we can, if you want, we can talk about later, because you also at Embraer, you have come up with some very futuristic designs that go in this line, right? Like the recent Embraer Pulse concept.
Yes.
It's essentially, it's a bit like a flying car in a way.
Yep.
And also the electrification and how the automotive industry is moving in this direction. And many people in aerospace are now working as well in electrification. Not everyone is as optimistic as some industry sources. I had a podcast recently with someone that told me that, well, electrification for some uses, yes, for some other uses, maybe it's still some way off. But anyway, that's something we can touch later when we talk about the concept you design at Embraer. So basically, you are working for Embraer, that is a Brazilian company, but you are based in the US, right? Because Embraer Executive Jets, it's got its operations in Florida, right?
Yes, that's correct. Embraer has been in Florida in the United States for a long time due to the commercial aircraft activities, and we have our facilities in Fort Lauderdale, the Fort Lauderdale Hollywood Airport. But in more recent time, over the last 10 years, we've had our executive jet headquarters in Melbourne, Florida, the Space Coast, and that has been strategic, but quite a coup as well, because of its location in Florida, between Orlando and Fort Lauderdale, being a nice destination for customers. But that's really
near NASA, right? It's near Cape Kennedy.
Yeah. And what a neat place to be with the spaceport planet Earth, Cape Canaveral, Florida Space Coast, and we're right there. We were able to capitalize on getting a lot of employees from the shuttle missions. When the shuttle missions ramped down, we came in at the same time, and we're able to in a lot of employees from that. So we had a really highly skilled technical employee base very quickly. So it's been a wonderful location for us.
And one that now it's seeing a lot of new activity once more with all the new laws.
Oh yeah,
you've seen now.
Yep. It's they've done the governance and the those who are inspiring companies to come here, the EDC and those responsible for giving incentives have done a great job, because the amount of companies that are moving in to Melbourne and to the east coast of Florida is tremendous. It's really an economic boom, and everybody's having a lot of fun.
Basically, you are producing designs not just for, like, let's say, the more conventional cabins, but you also have a very interesting line of design which is more conceptual, which is the one I was referring to earlier. So you have a whole range of ideas that basically what you do is you come up with a theme or a topic, and you completely turn the cabin of the executive aircraft into that theme. So just to give an idea of what this means to our audience, it's like you have a Japanese themed aircraft, where inside it looks like a typical traditional Japanese setting where people can sit on the ground and have very minimal lines, very, very clean, very simple, this sort of aesthetic. Then you have another one which is Art Deco, and you have all the design elements evoke the 1920s America, for example. I'm going to post some pictures of this so that our audience can check it out in the podcast website. But can you explain us a little bit what's the idea behind these sort of very outlandish designs, and what's the thought process behind them?
Oh, I'm glad you asked. I'm especially happy that you appreciate those things that have been done. The thought process is that of conceptual design to inspire. Sometimes, for instance, when the iPhone came out, many of us didn't realize we needed a phone that had no buttons. And many advisory boards may have told the phone companies, put bigger buttons on so I can use my gloves and things like that. So the point of that is companies, OEMs like Embraer, like Apple, and what they've done is develop new features that customers haven't asked for, but challenge the imagination, challenge the status quo and what we think of as normal to create a new normal. So if we wait for a customer, which does happen, to come in and say, I'd like a real exotic looking interior and let's work on this project, we'll finish the project. That project is very personal to the owner, and we don't show that interior because it belongs to the customer, the individual who bought the plane and designed it. It's theirs. So there's not much to really show the world as far as inspiration for what the future could look like, or inspiration for what capabilities we have. So as a company, it does us well to come up with concepts on our own to show what could be and create dramatic subjective opinions, pro and con, and it's all good because now we have people debating something that they never knew was there previously. Mm-hmm. So the philosophy is that of gaining and engaging customer interest based off of the marketed or guerrilla marketing advisory committee that people don't really realize they're in, because we will respond to those comments, and then people become interested in our airplanes because of it. So really, it's similar to what I was raised with at Ford in the concept car design studios in California, is building concept vehicles that will not be built exactly the way they look, because in production things have to change, but they inspire and drive a DNA or a look for the future. And individuals will look at this concept vehicle and say, I wonder if the grille, or I wonder if those door handles or the features, the body lines are going to be what's coming in years to come.
Yeah.
So actually, it's that tool.
Yeah.
That's why we
was thinking fashion industry as well. You have all the fashion shows, all the runway, all the designs that are shown in the runway, and then very few of these actually end up being used on a day-to-day basis, but they serve as a sort of a blueprint for other ideas that will become more widely adopted. In particular, I was very impressed by one of the concepts, which was actually having a window that runs all along the wall of the side of the aircraft. So you actually have a panoramic wall where you can see what's outside. And I was even more impressed when I learned that that's actually feasible with current technology and current regulations. Where is that? What happened to that concept? Is it still something that might happen in the future?
Yeah, the actual panoramic physical analog reel, not synthesized, panoramic window, I believe was a Fokker Systems technology that BBJ launched a few years ago and showed in a concept in an office space inside of a BBJ, which was stunning. The window obviously requires cutting through fuselage frames and reinforcements. So in order to keep the window structurally in place. So it's really a marvel of technology. And that window was inspirational in many ways. For the Embraer piece of that equation of immersing yourself into nature rather than hiding yourself from it and trying to protect yourself from it, we basically did the opposite in a sense. We pursued a vertical portrait view window, and the benefit of the portrait view window vertically is a top down and up view of the earth and the sky you're flying in, but structurally it's much easier to execute and therefore more available to customers.
So
because the price point
what's
works
a
pretty good. So yeah.
portrait view window? What's that exactly?
So in the Kyoto airship that you were referring to, the Japanese tailored theme, and on the Sky Ranch concept for the Lineage, we put the vertical window in. So basically it's the size of a Type 3 emergency exit. So a door-sized emergency exit you might see inside of a commercial airplane.
Mm-hmm.
And we know those work, and they're in airplanes all over the place. So structurally safe and easy to execute. But if you fill that emergency exit door size hole with glass, composite glass, you have an incredible window. So portrait as an up and down, landscape, or panoramic being side to side. So this up and down portrait view window was achieved because we had put plans and engineering together to execute an observer window for a Coast Guard delivered ERJ. So one of our commercial ERJ aircraft, the Coast Guard could use that window as they circle the ocean looking, doing search and rescue. They can look down. Those drawings, that engineering work fit beautifully onto the Lineage as long as we stayed forward of the wing spar or forward of the wing. Structurally, that was the best place for it. So the reality is we can execute those large windows on a Lineage. And that's why we put those concepts together, the Kyoto airship and the Sky Ranch, to show what that experience might look like.
Yeah, I'm gonna post. As I said earlier, I'm gonna post some pictures because it's difficult to imagine if you haven't seen them on a rendering. But they are really amazing. I'm gonna make sure they are in the podcast transcript so that everyone can see them. So with the Coast Guard, it's already in service, this concept.
Yeah, I'm not sure when it went into service or when it was delivered, but it was the basis for being able to execute that window. And really what happened was we had worked with a super yacht designer in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, named Patrick Knowles. And that was due to a relationship we had with Boat International Media. And Marilyn Maurer, and she had recommended Patrick Knowles to work with on a concept that would be a yacht-like experience inside of a big jet. Know what it was going to be at the time, but in our brainstorming, we asked the question, Patrick, what can we do on a yacht that in aerospace we'd all be shaking our heads saying, no way, never going to happen? And he said, well, windows. Look at some of these super yachts, like a Fed ship, the Fed ship Savannah, beautiful boat, massive. It has what they call a Nemo room on either side of the pool, or on the left-hand side of the boat. And you can see into the pool in the middle of the boat, and you can see under the water to the left side of the boat. The window goes below the water line and above the water line. I'm like, holy smoke. Yeah, so amazing experience. So he's like, well, let's come up with a hypothetical customer. And in that brainstorming, we said, well, what about our good old Japanese friends? We haven't talked about them in a long time as far as a market. They're very deliberate, humble, modest, educated people that sometimes don't get a lot of attention. Let's come up with a theme, a hypothetical theme based off of a Japanese customer who wants to be able to sit on the floor and have dinner, but still be able to have an airplane and take off TTNL, take off and landing seats and everything else needed for flight, of course. But if you do that inside of an airplane, sit on the floor to give that what would be yacht-like experience, have my home and my boat, that home experience in the airplane means you're sitting in a bathtub because the windows are up high. So he sketched windows dropping to the floor, and we're like, okay, let's go see if we can do this. The renderings look beautiful, and it was an instant hit to the point my boss at the time, Marco Tullio, the CEO of Embraer Executive Jets, looked at it and said, Jay, we better be able to make this if we publish this. I'm like, oh, we can make it. He's like, you need to go to Brazil and meet with our guys. So I did. I went down and spent about a week and a half with the engineering team in Brazil, in San Jose dos Campos. Mm-hmm. And lo and behold, we pulled up the engineering and the drawings for that Coast Guard airplane. And we're like, that's it. Will that work on a Lineage? And being the DNA of our top-down technology from our aircraft, fuselages to whatever size they're going to be, have so many similarities, it worked. And they said, yeah, we can actually do this. If a customer wants it and are willing to pay for it, we'll do it. And I came back with my get out of jail free letter from engineering saying we can do this. We published the concept, and that's how serendipitous and wonderful and neat of an experience that was.
So that's the Kyoto.
Yep, the Kyoto.
The Kyoto,
1,000-year city.
It's a Japanese theme interior. Then there's the Manhattan, which is a New York 1930s 1930s style. Then you have also the Western, that is like basically it's like a Western movie. I remember they had even these leather saddles all over the place, and all this look very, very authentic. And then you had Art Deco as well. It was also 1920s. Oh, that was the Manhattan.
Yep, Manhattan and Hollywood.
Hollywood, yeah, yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, quite, yeah.
Those concepts in particular take on a very unique experience. It's what Eddie Sato he's the ex-senior vice president of Imagineering. Eddie Sato, now Sato Studios, worked with us on those, and it was about experiential design. And he's the master of explaining experiential design because of obviously his work with Disney, and especially that of Disney Europe in Paris, Euro Disney. That was his major project, and so he really understood, this idea of theming an interior to be an experience, not just a commodity or a necessity. So back in 2012, the latter part of 2012, beginning of 2013, he called me up and said, we've been friends for a long time. And he said, Jay, now that you're at Embraer, I've been asked by Rob Report to create the ultimate gift for the Ultimate Gift Guide 2013 December edition. So they go through this big list of what you must have, and the ultimate gift being the best gift, they asked Eddie to design an airplane. And so Eddie called me up and said, can we do a lineage? And I said, oh, we will do a lineage. So at that point, Eddie, in about an 8-week time frame, 2 months, sketched his hands off and came up with the Sky Yacht 1. And that Sky Yacht design, we rendered out with our team in Melbourne, Florida. We have a rendering VR digital animation team. So we built out those images and created what was the Sky Yacht. And it got a tremendous amount of attention. And it was Eddie's opportunity to start looking at aerospace design, and my opportunity to get Embraer a brand attention grabbing theme, something so unique. Like I want my airplane to smell like pipe tobacco, like a 1930s mahogany sailing yacht, but it's got auto land features, and it's the latest technology for flying heads up display, and 6'4" quarterback that runs a 4.4 40, in the NFL. It's like, he shouldn't be that fast because he's too big. And that's a phenom, right? That's our small airplane. But the definition of a phenom is something that just amazes us. And that's what the Lineage was. It meets the definition as well. So here we were able to gain a lot of attention for an aircraft that would be able to be customized. Many thought the Lineage was only a type certified Embraer offering with a fixed interior. But in reality, it was a green aircraft, which means it could be bought naked without an interior and customized in a completion center like a BBJ or an ACJ.
Yeah.
Well, many in the world didn't know that. So that theme was exactly for that. And that was what led to a long relationship of these experiential type designs, including the Sky Ranch, big window that we have, proprietary. But it was like, how do we tell the story of JR Fracking and Texas meets Brazilian rancher, and they come together and create this Western Hermes French saddlery, theme. Oh, the Sky Ranch, that's perfect. Let's build that out. But let's change the floor plan a bit. Let's make your entry the greeting space of this first room in the aircraft after the vestibule or the entry would be the office with the big window, this room of intimidation where you get to meet with clients and people, but they never pass the galley, which is right behind that office space with the big window. And after the galley, there's 4 more cabin zones of airplane, of private home space where nobody gets to see it but the owner. But he's got an office space up front that he can take people on his airplane with, and have a galley in between to separate it, like a giant safe room. So that was kind of that theme. And then I had this, I love Art Deco, and there's the United States especially has what I call the triangle of Art Deco: Manhattan, Hollywood, and Miami. So I'm like, well, how about the lineage could also be a great charter airplane? So imagine the charter aircraft that the royal family has to have a selfie in, or the Kardashians have to have a selfie in. I mean, flying on a normal airplane with khaki, tan interior is not good enough anymore. We must be on the Hollywood. Oh, why? Because it celebrates the silver screens. It celebrates the 1930s and Art Deco design. And what about the Manhattan, the Chrysler Building, the Empire State Building, the reliefs and mosaics of metal and stone that greet you as you walk in, showing the Empire State conquering the world of commerce and leading. It's those stories that mean something that could be put throughout these interiors. So we executed on the Hollywood and Manhattan airship. Took a lot of inspiration from Jean-Michel Frank and many of the Art Deco designers that worked on the Normandy cruise ship. Was part of the influence for some of that, not just the cities in the United States, but really the fantastic that went into the Normandy cruise ship and those incredible designers that made it happen. So Eddie helped us with that. We hired him. Eddie's an expert in Art Deco design. So those conceptual aircraft were a fantastic opportunity for a relationship that works, and it has worked for a long time. So we had a lot of fun with that. So all of that was, again, for brand and marketing. When a company is trying to get attention and become a household name and therefore be desired, it has to get that attention somehow. And waiting for the years of building the field of dreams can sometimes be too long. You need attention now. And that's what these conceptual designs have done for us and have helped us build our brand visibility around the globe.
Yeah,
and sales.
Yeah, it's certainly a great story. And are you responsible as well for design of the outside of the aircraft, like liveries and all that? Because I remember
yes.
the Manhattan design that you mentioned, it also had a special livery. It came with a very unique livery outside, kind of dazzling sort of, I don't know how to describe it. It looked like a sort of 1940s warship with all those lines in different scales of gray. It was really, really unique thing as well. And
well, yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that. Yes, we do. To answer your first question, we are responsible for the livery, and nomenclature, paint scheme designs. The Embraer Executive Jet corporate paint scheme was part of our mission as well. But the paint scheme in particular for the Manhattan airship was a twofold inspiration. I've always loved those incredible 1920s and the bullet trains, the big, sleek Art Deco contemporary looking diesel hybrid trains and they always had horizontal lines running down the side, and they had that pinstripe suit kind of a look. So I was like, wait, turn the train vertical, and what do you get? You get a New York 1940s and 30s pinstripe suit, and it's like, okay, that's Art Deco City, and this airplane needs a tuxedo paint scheme, and it needs to feel like it's going fast, standing still. So dark navy blue, flag blue paint with silver pinstripes on it was it, and it worked beautifully. It was striking. So that's where the inspiration for the paint scheme came from, to match with what the story was we're trying to tell in the interior as well.
And it looks like you have looked again at that time, at that era, to come up with the latest design, right? The Embraer Pulse, which is a conceptual aircraft for personal mobility, sort of. I don't know, it's unmanned, right? It's sort of an air taxi, just a quote unquote. Not sure if it's the right word to describe it. And it's inspired as well in some car concepts of the 1930s. Is that right? 1920s, sorry. Can you tell us about this concept, the Embraer Pulse, and what's the philosophy, the idea behind it?
Sure. The first thing is we do make a deliberate effort to look into history and look back and find those moments of those earthquake moments, those tremors that changed a system or an industry, like the 1960s muscle car era in the United States. The 1950s consumer products where vacuum cleaners look like bullet trains. And 1960s as well for fashion design, the Kennedys, Jacqueline Onassis, and the fashions that so there's moments like the 1930s that changed an industry. And in that particular case, the 1930s were special because in 1938, Harley Earl, who worked for General Motors, came up with the Buick Y-Job concept car. And so going back to concepts, what's the purpose? To convince everybody there needs to be a change. Conceptually, what we have now, in reality, what we have now is not good enough. We're going to move forward. And what does that direction look like? Where's that flagpole that we're now going to aim for? And that was a Buick Y-Job concept vehicle. And in 1938, it was so different compared to the contemporary vehicles in the 30s. Duesenbergs and Packards and Rolls Royces. These were all very long, square, boxy vehicles with Continental packages with tires on the side, spare tire wrapped in chrome, and beautiful, beautiful cars. But it was not the Buick Y-Job. The Buick Y-Job basically became what the cars looked like in the 1950s and 40s. It inspired. It was the first concept car. 1939. Let's jump across the pond to Europe. In Germany, Ferdinand Porsche came up with the Type 64. The Type 64 was absolutely different in every way imaginable, but inspired by aerospace. And they even bragged at the time about having over 2,000 rivets on the body because this is based off of aerospace technology. Obviously the Beetle was first, but the Beetle was not this Type 64. The Type 64 went on a road trip, a road race through Europe, and then became the inspiration for the 356. Mm-hmm. So those moments changed things. In aerospace, taking a lesson from that, how can we create a concept vehicle that creates so much attention and buzz and imagination that we want to get there, that we deliberately make product plans to evolve for that purpose, to target and meet that location in time in the future. So again, in aerospace, we're very deliberate, we're very safe. We take the time to certify and build. The aerodynamicists are purposeful. Of course, they want to build beautiful, sleek airplanes, and we get that more and more. But the idea of creating a conceptual aircraft from the inside out that would create a whole new experience for the future really hasn't been done much at all. Mm-hmm. So, being that this was our 50th anniversary this year for Embraer, we had the idea of, actually it was about 3 years ago, we've been planning for this moment. Let's come up with a way to celebrate the next 50 years during our 50-year celebration, reflecting on our past achievements. So not just celebrating what's been done, but look at, man, since we did this, keep an eye on us because we're going to do this. And just create this perception, what we know internally as reality, but into the world and marketplace, a perception of lean, mean, strong. We're going to get there because we're fast, smart, and the world wants it. So the Pulse concept was that. It was, okay, what's the future of mobility going to be? Today, we hear a lot of dialogue and conversation about personal aircraft ownership diminishing, which makes me very sad, think of that. But we're entering an era of shared economy, access economy. So how do we bring the price of these things down so more people can access them? Therefore, access economy, shared economy. You must not own that yourself. It's not the right thing to do. You must share it with everybody. You must rent it out. So there's pressure to do that. Or is the reality that there's always going to be ownership? And especially now in this era of pandemic, people are worried about having other individuals in their airplanes. So the charter and the fractional and some of those things are actually maybe going the other way. People want whole ownership. So you never know what's going to happen. So the idea for the Pulse was show that in the future, I can go from A to B, destination to destination, and never leave what I own, my personal space, which was the pod portion of the aircraft. And that would allow me to do what? Oh, I could go to Monaco, not fly into Nice, but go literally to Monaco, F1 race in my coach, Well, coach with wheels. Yes, we designed a coach that would accept the pod from the flying box wing design hybrid electric aircraft, autonomous, no cockpit vehicle. So you could go from airport to land to destination and never get out of your vehicle. So that was the whole premise.
Yeah.
Could that be connected to train systems in the future and other things? Absolutely. So the idea was A to B, seamless connectivity without leaving your vehicle, land and air. So the future was that experience. Now, who's going to make it happen? Embraer. Why? Because of the top-down technology that's going to lead us there from our eVTOLs with Embraer X and this Uber air taxi revolution that everybody's searching to execute and how to make happen. If that technology over the next 50 years is grown, boy, look what can happen. So that was the idea. Take 2019 as a moment like 1969. Let our eVTOL be the Banderanti of 1969 and become the technology jump necessary to put us in the next 50 years to the pulse, the pulse of our future. So that is the purpose for that concept.
Yeah, actually, there's this sort of feeling that the aerospace industry is in the cusp of some important changes, technological changes, and also changes in the business models and the way that people use aircraft and fly. So yeah, I guess it's kind of the right time to think about radically new concepts that these new technologies would make possible eventually. So I see one of the themes here also in your designs is actually, as you mentioned earlier, kind of the openness, these sort of more airy designs where you don't get the feeling of being enclosed, but more open. So is this also in line with all this biomimicry approach, trying to imitate nature? What can you tell us about that? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it has nothing to do.
No.
I've seen some people in the industry working along these lines, making passengers feeling more at ease in a more open environment.
Yeah, biomimicry is key to everything that aerospace. I mean, the more we can simulate what's happening in creation and the planet around us, and we reproduce it, the more efficient we become. So, like a bird, the structure of the bird's bone we've learned a lot from, and it's inspired 3D printing of metals to have the honeycomb and crisscrossing shapes. So that might be the inside of a bird bone type structure for lightweight solutions. So biomimicry, it's the right thing to do. The tubercles or the features on a whale's fins and how they spiral through the water going up, like a blue whale, actually speeds it up because it creates deliberate turbulence in the water, which creates air gaps, cavitation, creates basically air ball bearings on the fins, allowing it to fly through the water faster. So can we create deliberate disruption in fuselages, dynamic aero that adjust to allow faster movement, more laminar flow based off of disruptive features? Well, a whale can do it. We can do that in the air as well. So there's a lot to learn. And in that regard, how do you manage solar energy and keep yourself from being bombarded by UV rays? There's another tale to be learned from. There's an ant, and I believe it's in the Sahara Desert. This particular ant has the ability to withstand temperatures and heat that no other animal or insect can. And it has to do with his triangular shaped hairs that are on his body that deflect, almost like a stealth fighter, the rays, and keeps it cool. So how do we do that on an airplane exterior? Well, on the Pulse, we didn't put triangular stealth tubes on it, but rather than go glass, because many will say, oh, it's a glass tube, that must be heavy. You can't, it's Alon. And I gained inspiration from Alon, A-L-O-N, due to a company that's making transparent aluminum. And what can we do with transparent aluminum? Well, it's much more protective, and it's strong, it's lightweight, and it's a reality, which is crazy because most wouldn't know it. I think it was a Star Trek 4. Scotty came up with a calculation for transparent aluminum so they could transfer the whales back from the future to San Francisco. It was science fiction. And lo and behold, today we have it. They're using it for bulletproof systems in the military. And NASA is also investigating and studying it to be used on the space station and rockets and things like that, because it's more scratch resistant and there's all the other benefits to it. It can be thinner and stronger. So tried to get access to a sample of it, and they asked me if I had government clearance, and we I didn't. And so it's top secret stuff that they're working on now, but great for 50 years from now. That transparent aluminum can be that fuselage. It's protective. There's treatment that we can do to it that's going to keep us from being burnt by the sun and the UV rays and all those things that we learn from creation and things around us can be applied to that. So rather than synthesizing the world around us and creating giant screens that really don't do a good enough job of telling us what's outside, let's keep it aluminum, lightweight, but make it see-through. And that way I don't need a screen to tell me what's happening. I can see the real thing. And it can be a smart technology screen on the inside where it's giving me information of where I'm going on my journey. It can track my eyes and look at controls within the interior and truly be that butler with wings, servant that we would like in that type of airplane.
Yes, smart technology and smart approach that I guess it's also underpinning one of the latest initiatives that you launched is it's actually not flying, it's a chair, it's an office chair, right? So
Yep.
Can you tell us a bit more about this? You presented it recently, and it's called the Paradigma office chair, and is inspired by a design that is present in some of the current Embraer models. So it's not a concept, it's something that exists physically in the real world. So yeah, tell us a bit more about this chair, because it looks really amazing. And I was just wondering, are you planning to distribute it as a piece of furniture separate from the planes, or what's the plan?
Yep. Yeah, I'm glad you asked. Thank you. The chair is part of an initiative that my team is going through, and that is to build revenue. So EDO, Embraer Design Ops, we are now authorized as a service provider to anybody else, either in the industry or out of the industry, automotive, yachting. Should somebody want industrial design or have that need, we can supply that as a service, like many other consultancies might do. So take that technology and education we have from internal execution and proof and apply that for others to use is the idea, but also to create product. So as a design organization, are we only able to design airplanes? Can we design something, a consumer product that can bring revenue in to the design organization, help us grow even further, and sharpen the talent of our employees to be able to use back in airplanes again? So we said, yes, let's do this. Now, what's the situation that we've seen over the decades? Furniture design often influences the aircraft. Earlier, I mentioned the Kyoto airship, how the home experience for that Japanese customer influenced the interior design. We asked the question, what if we reverse that paradigm? Therefore, paradigma, Portuguese for paradigm. Let's flip that paradigm and say the aircraft of the future, the Pulse, the aircraft of the future is going to inspire furniture today. So we took the seat out of the Pulse aircraft and we designed a structure and a pedestal and a feature and a track and swivel like mechanism to feel like you're inside of a private jet with its movement, because those in private aircraft will know I reach down to the side to pull a lever to track and swivel my seat. So that same experience you might have in an aircraft is what is in the Paradigma office chair. But it's also the design, a design from the future that we can have now. So if I can't have that airplane, but I really like it, I can have a piece of it. Okay, how much? Let's make it. And the trim style of the Paradigma chair, we use the Bossa Nova Ipanema style design from our Bossa Nova line of interiors from our Praetor 600 and Phenom 300E. And that stitch comes as an inspiration from Carl Burlmarx and the designs he did in Rio, at Ipanema and Copacabana, and those different beaches had different patterns. So we use that as inspiration to reinvent the style that might be in our chairs in our contemporary airplanes today. So the Paradigma office chair is an office chair inspired by an aerospace company design team from an aircraft 50 years into the future for people to have today in their office or conference room.
Well,
and we're prototyping it now. We intend on going live with sales by the end of the year, fourth quarter. So we're going to make this chair, and we have a lot of interest in it right now, to say the least. So we're really excited about that.
where are you going to sell it? Is it decided yet?
It'll be sold globally. We want everyone to be able to have it if they would like.
Mm-hmm.
Where we're going to manufacture it is still up in the air. So that's currently what we're discussing now. Who will manufacture it, whether we manufacture it ourselves or somebody licenses and manufactures it. But we're still in those discussions. But we actually built a design mock-up and put it in the Milan Furniture Fair last year in May or April. And so physically it is built and it was there. And that gave us our first hint as to the acceptance and what people are going to think they want to do with it. And that's why we've gone and executed it. So it's been 1 year so far as a physical asset in the making. And we have all the knowledge, background support saying that this will be successful and we're going to sell it. So more to come. Hopefully by the end of July, we'll have the functional prototype ready and we'll go live in media with it.
It's a high-tech chair, right? I mean, it's got all sort of features as well that control the inclination and movement, tilting, all of that. So apart from looking amazing, it's actually very a very sophisticated chair.
Yes.
Sorry.
Oh no. Yes, I think you're about to ask price point. We're not sure exactly the price point yet, and that will be based off of our final bill of materials and internal cost of building it, but also be priced accordingly to the luxury market and what comparable designs or chairs have done in the past to make sure that we're hitting the right target customer.
Still cheaper than buying the whole plane.
Cheaper than buying the plane, but inspires you to want to have one in the future. Yeah. So it's a good brand and marketing tool as well. And it, again, the more you become a household name and known by the world, the more those who have the resources to buy it will want it. It's just one of those things that is a reality. So that's what we're trying to do. And as far as the technology of the chair, it has to have authenticity. So if it comes from an aerospace company, the third largest aerospace company, Embraer, what's different about it? Is it just comfort? And you mentioned the technology. So we have two versions. One version will have cable actuation and easy to move track and swivel features that are less technical, but maximizes usability and reach for customers to be able to purchase. The second version, the, let's say, top of the line version, is the one that has what we're currently working on and studying. Is we know we can use capacitive switches on the side in the veneer. So on the back side of the veneer, on the shell underneath your seat, is a capacitive touch switch that will electrically operate a release pin and allow you to slide and move around the puck basically on the base of the chair area, roughly 6 inches side to side, 5 inches fore and aft. And then when you release the switch, take your hand away, it locks into place again. So something similar to an electric assist release you might have on a private jet. So again, authenticity. We need the chair to feel like I'm operating it on an airplane. The other neat piece is the maglev type technology. So opposing magnets, like a bullet train in Japan, maglev, it's frictionless. Nothing's touching each other because of the opposing magnets. So if this base has that type of technology, I can glide around on that base plate with a maglev type of energy and resistance. So when the pin is released, I don't feel bearings moving. I don't feel friction or anything mechanical working. It almost feels like I'm floating. So that chair is going to be the top of the line, most expensive, because it has to be, to execute it, chair. And that's the fun of it. The chair works in two directions, mechanical, manual, release like most would expect, but also the top of the line version that can only come from an aerospace company like Embraer.
Wow, sounds amazing. And yeah, so we'll be definitely keeping an eye on these and other projects to see what's coming up out of your factory of ideas. And I'm sure there's going to be some more amazing designs down the line soon. So yeah.
Well, thank you for saying that. Yeah, I appreciate your interest and your comments are held in high esteem because of your experience and your knowledge of this industry. So I was really looking forward to this discussion today.
Thank you so much. It's been a great pleasure. And yeah, maybe, when you go on releasing more concepts and ideas, we should have you again here to continue the conversation. So yeah.
Yeah, we'd love that. Thank you for the exposure and attention.
Yeah, in the meantime, thank you very much. And hope to we'll coincide at some point in the future. Maybe eBay's, who knows, when things are going to be back to normal. In any case, thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome. I have to say one more thing. I was reflecting back on that flight that we were on together. And I remember when we took off on that lineage, we were forced to circle Paris before we headed into Geneva. And it was such a beautiful, clear day. And indeed, I think even you had remarked that you don't see it that clear that often. And you could see the wagon wheel of Paris, the Arc de Triomphe, Eiffel Tower.
Yes.
It was stunning. It was really stunning. And it was hard to talk about interior concepts and designs when you had such a view of a beautiful city like that. So thank you for remembering.
That's when the that extra large windows that you came up with have been really handy on that flight. Because that's truly a panoramic flight. Anyway,
exactly.
Very good. So good memories. Thank you so much. Speak to you soon.
Welcome.
Bye.
Yep. Have a wonderful day.